Let's talk about Dr. Mary Bethune. So it's hard to even know where to begin because her legacy is just so rich and so wide. Born to former slaves, one of the youngest of 17 children, walking 8 miles to school every day and coming back home and teaching her siblings what she learned at school, creating a schoolhouse, making the desk by herself, the students using elderberry for ink, burning wood so that they can get pencils, like just things that are seem absolutely absurd to those of us in modern day. But all of these things not only allowed her to have a school for Negro women and girls, but also it became Mary Bethune Cookman. July 13th, 2022, which was just last year, Bethune became the first African American to be represented with a state statue in the National Statuary Hall collection of the U.S. Capitol. She led voter registration drives after women gained the vote in 1920. In 1924, she was elected president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. And in 1935, she became the founding president of the National Council of Negro Women. Bethune also played a role in black voters with becoming, if you know anything about American history, right, a lot of black votes were going towards the Republican Party because Lincoln was a part of the Republican Party. And under Lincoln's presidency, we have the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, which freed a lot of our ancestors, right? Which is up for debate because the 13th Amendment, if you read the 13th Amendment, then you'll understand that slavery isn't fully out of our Constitution. There are different forms of slavery going on in our government. And if you Google the 13th Amendment, you have to be very careful because Google will not give you the full 13th Amendment. So you have to make sure that when you research the 13th Amendment to understand what's going on with slavery in our country today, that you get the full amendment, okay? Because there are things like that going on out here where things are getting regulated and cut off and only segments and snippets of things and information are given to people. And that's why it's so important for us to share our stories, whether you are from the Caribbean, the South, California, London. Sharing your family stories and your family history and having a record of that is very, very important, okay? And each one teach one, for sure. Bethune became the highest ranking African-American woman in government when President Franklin Roosevelt named her Director of Negro Affairs of the National Youth Administration. This is where she remained until 1944. She was also a leader of FDR's unofficial Black Cabinet. In 1937, Bethune organized a conference on the problems of the Negro and Negro youth and fought to end discrimination and lynching. In 1940, she became Vice President of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons, the NAACP, a position she held for the rest of her life. As a member of the advisory board that in 1942 created the Women's Army Corps, Bethune ensured it was racially integrated, appointed by President Harry S. Truman. Bethune was the only woman of color at the founding conference of the United Nations in 1945. She regularly wrote for the leading African-American newspapers, the Pittsburgh Courier and the Chicago Defender. And additionally, Bethune was a businesswoman who co-owned a Daytona, Florida resort and co-founded the Central Life Insurance Company of